Well, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Are we awake yet? Sort of?
Trying to be.
Almost warmed up? How was a little bit of Nancy Johnson's salad? You seen that before?
No, I haven't.
Kind of cute, isn't it? Figured that would be a good thing to fill the waiting time and warm things up here. Our topic today is, of course, most importantly, Star Trek. But, realistically, leadership in an open source world. More likely an open source universe. I mean, after all, we're about to go boldly explore the rest of the galaxy. We're going to try to learn things from the way people have done things, in Star Trek era, looking back in the old days, 2 centuries previously, when they actually created open source software, to kind of see what were the successful practices at the time. See what we can do with that. There will be a drawing at the end, so I will invite you to pass your business cards to the center, and we'll let our room host collect them up. I promise you will not get spammed. There will be one and only one email that they will be used for, and that will be to send you the links for this stuff afterwards, as well as a list of useful resources. So if you want to get into the drawing, we have books to give away courtesy of O'Reilly's. And with that, there is an obligatory self-introduction that I'm going to whiz through. It's just going to do it in the visual style so that you can kind of see where I started, what I did, what I don't like to do anymore. Where I play. I'm a front ender. I work a lot with the content management systems that are out there, and in particular I bridge software. So I bridge proprietary stuff like GiftWorks, which is a donor management system for keeping track of donors and donations, to things like Joomla and WordPress, so that the donor profile gets updated from the back end and we give a more personalized view to the world. I'm also a photographer, so I like to show off a little bit of my work just because I can. That's what it should be looking like in the area where I live, way up the hill. I sometimes do this introduction for people overseas, so they need to know where Park City, and more importantly, where Utah is. Most people have no clue where Utah is. They have some semblance of, some idea of where Colorado is, so I can point that out and go, say, just go left. I am a ski patroller, volunteer ski patrol in the canyons, part of the Sunday Heathen Patrol, so that's what I look like when you would find me on the hill. Don't hesitate to come find me. Now that we're under Vail Resorts, it's a little bit different, but also we're at the World Cup. So this is what the view of the World Cup is like from the top. It's a little bit more interesting place to be, and usually I'm up there helping the racers get started and spending a couple weeks building these kickers to help the aerialists get off the ground. So it's a whole lot of fun up there. But why should you be listening to this guy? And not for any of those reasons. I am involved in open source. I'm on 2 different open source leadership teams. One of them is Joomla. Now, Joomla's been around 10 years, roughly 3 million websites running on it. It's a rather substantial presence, but it's the CMS. How boring. I mean, none of the cutting edge stuff is happening there. Well, maybe, maybe not. Joomla Framework is a Symfony package set up as packages. There's a number of different components that are being used to provide web services where you can reach into a CMS to get back user information, get their login, get their social media connections, get data out of the database. So even stodgy old places like web CMSs are getting into the game and playing along. And for them, I am their technology, their trademark and technology licensing manager. So I spend a lot of my time dealing with open source licenses, which is just a whole boring thing to do. And so that's where I spend time. I'm also on another project called Mautic that I will introduce in just a few moments. That is one just got started this year. The version 1 software has been out a whopping 2 months, but it's one to go check out. I welcome questions anytime. I will save a little bit of time at the end, but I really, while we're on a topic, don't hesitate to jump in, especially if I haven't made something clear. But I enjoy the discussion, so don't hesitate to jump in there. And we're going to boldly go down the rabbit hole into the fun topics of what's going on here. Joomla, fortunately, takes me on speaking tours all over the place. So those are all the places I've had the pleasure of speaking, and that slide was clearly out of order. And so is this one. But we'll move on to the fun things that have to do with open source and software.
We're blending, and we are touch. I know Mr. Data isn't supposed to speak. smile, but here it comes. Come on, guys, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm sweating my ball tap off.
So what's our first pose gonna be?
I say we begin with a classic Star Trek fight scene. I'll set the timer.
Sheldon, how is that a fight pose?
Mr. Data's weapon is his mind. I'm wielding it.
Faces on the board. Charlie's Angels.
Okay, what's next?
Now let's do some sexy glamour shots. I'll set the mood.
Just gotta let my ear track out.
Nice one.
Let's keep going with some fun stuff. Yeah, I know, never mind. You know, you're supposed to start with a little humor, right?
Captain on the bridge!
Lieutenant, we have an open channel, Mr. Spock.
The heat's frying his comms, but we still have contact.
Spock!
We have activated the device, Captain. When the countdown is complete, the reaction should render the volcano inert.
Yeah, and that's gonna render him inert.
Do we have use of the transporters?
Negative.
Not with these magnetic fields.
I need to beam Spock back to the ship. Give me one way to do it.
Maybe if we had a direct line of sight.
Hold on, wee man, you're talking about an active volcano, sir. If that thing erupts, I can't guarantee we can withstand the heat.
I don't know that we can maintain that kind of altitude.
Our shuttle was concealed by the ash cloud, but the Enterprise is too large. If utilized in a rescue effort, it would be revealed to the indigenous species.
Spock, nobody knows the rules better than you, but there has got to be an exception.
No. Such action violates the Prime Directive.
Shut up, Spock. We're trying to save you, damn it.
Doctor, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Spock, we're talking about your life!
The rule cannot be broken under any circumstances.
Try to get it back online.
90 seconds to detonations.
Spock, we're here and over there. What would he do?
He'd let you die.
Leadership. It's tough to be in the big chair. It's tough making some of those decisions, and they're tough ones. In the open source world, typically in projects where you're getting a lot of community involvement, which is one of your goals, the reason why you're putting out in open source is to get a whole bunch of developers out there scratching their own itch and contributing back code into your core software. And these are, of course, unpaid people. They're contributors as opposed to paid staff most of the time. Your goal is to get them involved and to get them participating. And leadership abhors a vacuum. One of the biggest challenges I see in dealing with the world of open source and leadership teams is the lack of leadership. And this kind of illustrates that. Sometimes somebody's got to take that lead position. Sometimes somebody's got to be in the tough position. There's a few projects that have benevolent dictators. Ries for Drupal is a great example. God bless them. Map for Automatic and WordPress is another good example. People that have taken it upon themselves to know the right answers and to push them forward. Each open source project needs people like that. But they also need consensus decision making. To make decisions well in open source, you really like the decisions to be made by consensus. The problem with voting is that half the room just got disregarded. Half the room feels uninvested. Half the room is no longer part of the solution. So voting should be your last option. It's one of the tough challenges in open source is trying to make decisions faster than the speed of glaciers. And getting involved and getting people feeling like they're involved in the process. And so it is knowing how to get those decision-making processes going in a way that you have everyone involved, everyone's voice is heard, and then you respectfully and you kindly call the question and you try to reach consensus. And you ask people, who of you can fade, build to the other side and join in on this so that we can get to the decision and move on. or who needs to work on things that are going on and hold up the project to really repair the issues. And then once you make a decision, move on. As leaders, we're constantly dealing with time. Time that this project is consuming, time in the market. We're trying to deal with where we've come from and hopefully learn the lessons from our history. Not a lot of projects have a lot of history. Fortunately, the Joomla project has 10 years of history. Celebrating its 10th anniversary, it's still going through some baby pains. It's no longer in the terrible twos, it's up there being a teenager. And it's got its challenges when it's got 3,000 active volunteers and 0 staff. Trying to corral that many people is just one of those fun challenges. So as a leader, you need to be aware of trends that are happening in your marketplace to help steer your project in the right direction. This is one of the scary, interesting statistics that's happening out there. Gartner's prediction that open source software is 95% of every organization's IT investment. That's a strong, serious presence. Open source has finally come of age, and it's out there, it's prevalent everywhere, and people are starting to rely on it. And as a result, they're looking to the projects to be effective in their own leadership and their own management to anticipate the needs of those users, including those enterprise-level users, those major corporations who have security risks and vulnerabilities that we can anticipate and resolve for them. There's a video that's not there. That's interesting. Sorry about that. You missed the fun. Here we go. So, guiding the future course, you're kind of mapping your way through the stars. You know, I would love to have a stellar cartography deck like that, you know, in my workroom, where I could see exactly where the universe of forces in our world we're coming to. But you need to be active and involved in keeping up with the industry and keeping up with other projects. So it's a whole lot of fun to kind of lock everyone into a closet, throw pizzas under the door, and work on a project somewhat in a vacuum, and hope when you come out the market is still there and the world has not moved on from you. The sad reality is it's not always the case. So as active leadership, you need to be keeping up with what the other guys are doing and even looking to where you can collaborate. One of the fun things that's starting to happen more and more in the open source world is not only projects being embedded into other projects and building those vertical dependencies, but parallel projects working with each other now to build bigger solutions. There's one I'm going to be talking about tomorrow where from the Joomla site you embed WordPress inside of it. So you've got best of breed for two worlds. You've got the best blog maker running blogs, and you've got the best base infrastructure for running everything else that surrounds the blog. And so between the two, giving an MVC environment for the programmer types and giving a code-free environment for the website builders, it is a wonderful magic combination. And there is a third open source project, Motic, that adds into that as well, that together really is transforming that whole marketplace.
Just received work complete. Then engage the board.
Starfleet frequency 14860 asset.
Lower your shield and surrender your ships. You'll add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to serve as us. Resistance is futile.
Send course for the maximum. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Engage.
Well, with the audio being a giant, I'm going to play the rest of this clip. But it is all about engaging the board at Sector 000, Earth. What is your Sector 000? What's home for you? Where do you need to protect yourself from the world? This is one of the roles of leadership as they're looking in projects and products, is looking at the fact that you are providing solutions for other people that they're depending upon. You are building the infrastructure that they're running their businesses on. Security vulnerabilities is one of the real major issues for us. And bugs can be overlooked for an awful long time. it's surprising how long that particular one lasted. There's all kinds of great studies about how long it takes to brute force hack various passwords of lengths. So there's suggestions on how long passwords should be. There's suggestions of using sentences and phrases. But recognizing that changing to 20 dictionary words, 2,000 dictionary words in addition to 26 alphabetic characters, plus their variations and symbols, making a character set of 2,100 characters, it's not that hard to break something. People with great little computers that have got 8 different graphics cards working in parallel can hack major hash codes very, very quickly. And we're measuring in milliseconds for some of these, and maybe 2.8 hours for some long phrases that are like 4 words long. So the ability to get a file that's full of hash codes and then use those user IDs and hack them and bring them out is one of the vulnerabilities that all of us face, because our users tend to reuse their user IDs. I can't tell you how many places I use my user ID of Duke 3D as part of my login for places, and anyone who knows me knows it. And so they know how to find it. So I use different user IDs for my logins that are on my own systems. I set up my clients to be using more complicated IDs, as well as different types of security. As open source leaders, we can impose, not just educate our public about how to put up secure systems, but force it in. Put into your systems the different types of strengths that you would like to see them have.
Establish a security code for access to all functions previously transferred to Bridge.
Enter code.
173467321 Charlie 32 7897777 643 Tango 732 Victor 731178888 732 476789764376 Lock.
Security code intact for all specified inquiries and orders.
Well, I hope nobody wrote down my access code. But part of that is to just recognize that there's opportunities available, and including educating people that are on your teams who present risks and vulnerabilities for accessing your core code, to use more sophisticated password systems, and that there's lots of tools out there on the market that they can be using to provide a much more secure system. And I am loving all the open source projects that are adopting things like YubiKeys, where you've got a physical device in addition to something you know. It can be, two-factor authentication can be the code that you're receiving from Google through your iDevice or something like that. But I'm a huge fan of the YubiKey as just something you keep on your key ring and plug it in, and every time you touch it, it's sending a different, unique, automatic cycling password. And I love all the projects that are picking it up now, just to keep all of us ahead of not being the person that's in the newspaper like that, just to pick on them since we're in their town. So, enough of this fun stuff. Let's move on to the next stuff. You don't want to be on that list, but here's just a couple of reminders of things that you can be educating your core teams and your users to be doing to just not creating vulnerabilities.
Well, am I a doctor or a moonshine doctor? I'm a doctor. You'd like to see just how fast I can put you in a hospital? I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. I'm a surgeon, not a psychiatrist. Look, I'm a doctor, not an escalator. I'm a doctor, not an engineer. I'm not a scientist or a physicist, Mr. Spock. I am Leonard McCoy, Senior Medical Officer aboard the USS Enterprise.
The point is, know yourself. Know who you are, know what your capabilities are, know what your limitations are. It is the nature of open source that we celebrate people who commit, people who submit pull requests, people who are active out there doing the work. It is the error of open source that every now and then we promote them to our highest level of leadership. And they really suck as leaders. Some people are better off being left in the closet with pizza shoved under the door than being out there trying to set direction for other people, trying to lead. When people rise up into those roles, they set project goals based on their personal experience of what they could do it the time they could do it in, or methods that they would use. Doesn't take into account the fact that you're trying to nurture new people to be coming into your project and to be active participants in the project. Doesn't take into account that you need recovery time when they screw up and you got to educate them. Or they haven't met your code style and you got to go through and refactor their code. Whatever might be the issue. Think about putting people into leadership roles that are in addition to the people who are your vision architects who set direction for your product. The Joomla project has 3 different teams intentionally for this purpose. So it's taken a long time to get to this structure. We used to have one core team, and then we finally realized that everyone who did code really got tired of sitting through listening to people talk about marketing or talking about how to update the website that's promoting the code and all those things. And the people who were doing the other types of activities got tired of listening to people talk about code and new directions and features and issues that were happening in the repositories. So breaking up teams into things that people have a stronger interest in is helpful. The challenge you create when you do that as well, though, is communication. Communication between teams. So sometimes it is better to have dedicated leaders whose contribution to the project is actually their presence at all the meetings to be the cross-channel of communication. And that you actually value that. You clock those hours and you count those and give credit for those and celebrate those the same way you count lines of code. The project who doesn't measure some of these contributions gets pulled back into that focus of just the code committers are our heroes. The only people we tend to celebrate and recognize and put in the list of people who brought this to you. Every project is dependent upon having people who are not necessarily coders. And if you don't find a way to celebrate them, you never attract them. You never retain them once you do attract them. So find a way to do that soft crediting, that recognition, some way to measure the value that a lot of people bring to your software and to your project. It is about delegating. The ideal leader does very little of this themselves. They put themselves out of business of being a coder. This is one community meeting. Part of being good and getting your project off the ground early on is bringing your people together live. The Joomla project, we're translated into 62 different languages, so we've got teams in every one of the countries that contribute to that, plus presence at our international conference from 125 different countries. So community is everything. Community is where people get the recognition, and make sure you do recognition. That part of your event isn't just conferences like this that hour after hour talks about the code or talks about how to advance your presence to provide new web services or whatever it might be. You also have to celebrate your heroes. You have to find a way to bring recognition to people. That's what they're there for. That's your currency. So in addition to doing code commit lines, you can be celebrating people who commit to your forum to help users, who are providing those solutions out there. Who are the people who are out promoting you and being active on social media? There's all kinds of ways to get out there and measure contribution. So find the metrics and use them. We're all facing this one, the need for speed. It's in our applications. We want to have time to market be nice and short. We want to have responsive websites. We want to have services that deliver quickly to the devices. We want to have AJAX calls not fail because some server has timed out, all kinds of things like that. So the need for speed affects a lot of things that we do. Devices have become so widespread. Part of your challenge and part of the issues is in testing and getting, making sure your code works on all those different devices. And so one of the things I've seen projects start to do now is start cataloging all the different devices that each of their major contributors have available to them. And then checking off, have you actually looked at a website on this device and see it's anomalous, it's weirdness. The emulators are great, but they are a 98% solution. There's still the 2% out there. So take advantage of those resources while they're out there. Form partnerships that help nurture each other. Do that within your teams. Find people that will watch your own back, and you can watch their back. So part of creating effective leadership teams is the mentoring that needs to happen. How do you bring new code contributors in line? I've seen so many teams where they're very fast to be critical of the first time commit of somebody. Oh, you don't know our style. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. What did they say was good? Where did they say something nice first? You know, where's the nurturing? So even before someone does a first commit, we like to find a partner who will look at their code in private and do a one-on-one review and feedback and coach them along before they do a public commit. It's going to get a little bit embarrassing for them. So help each other out, nurture people along. So those kinds of structures are really, really valuable. We're all kind of after that ultimate user interface that really, makes life intuitive. One of the things that we've discovered as we've been working the Joomla project is that we've kind of redefined the way people navigate through sites, changing some of the core tools for how people get around, particularly our back end, and get access to all the different 8,000 different extensions and have the back end management of 8,000 different independently developed projects look and feel the same to the end user who's administering it. That is one of the huge advantages of the Joomla project that not many projects have been able to emulate. But getting that consistent UI is something that we are very mindful of, and so we teach it. We go out there and we help developers as they're developing the add-on extensions and creating their new products who actually get paid to be in this universe, unlike the core contributors. We're helping them make sure that their product looks great in all the different displays for our back end. Our back end is one of the few that is mobile ready, and that every piece of software that has been certified to be compatible with Joomla 3 displays well on the interface on any device. So that's part of testing on all those different devices. We make sure that all that stuff works. That's one of the challenges. And then on the end user side, we're into don't make anybody think, especially the admins. We don't want to reinvent radio buttons. We don't want to reinvent the standard UI design patterns that people come to expect when they're using a device. Why change that? Why make people learn a different UI for your software than anybody else's? Doesn't make any sense. This is that cognitive dissonance, that noise that people talk about in user experience planning that really can mess up the world. So, as leadership for your projects, ask the question, do we need it to be this complicated? Can we take out a step? Can we simplify the interface? Can we do something that makes this almost brain dead easy to use and add complexity when the user asks for it? So I'm all in favor of wizard-style interfaces where you have an experts mode that can be turned on if the features you're looking for are not in front of your face. An extra place to go look for it, as opposed to fill my screen with noise that I have to wade through and figure out which one of these things I really have to set. So simplifying the interface helps a lot. Paving the cow paths. We are constantly watching to see how people use the software and the mistakes that are being made. And this is something that you do not see in any of the coding labs, anything that's going on in our online groups, any of our hang-ups. This is something where we throw the software in front of site builders and end users and videotape and learn from exactly how people are using the software, where they expect to find an interface. And then we put it there. Pave the cow paths. It's just one of those magic things that not enough projects are doing. I mentioned Mautic earlier. Mautic is short for marketing automation. This is a wonderful piece of software that you may want to go play with and spend a little time with. So it just reached version 1 2 months ago. Mautic is short for marketing automation. There is a .com and a .org, class just like WordPress. The .org is the software you can download, put on your own server. It is all open source and it is all free, as in free beer. It is also a .com where you can create an instance on their website and play with it all you want. There's no noise, no advertising, none of that stuff. It truly has been put up as completely free software. And what it does is beat HubSpot at its own game. That's the mission. They've taken all the people who work on marketing automation as kind of the center of their target and said, there's nothing like this for small business that's approachable for under $10,000. How can we make small businesses able to keep track of how they get their leads and how they do their conversions? And then work it into the open source projects that we work with. So this software, this website, generates that 1 pixel by 1 pixel tracking pixel that you can embed into anything. Not just the newsletter to find out the open rate to beat MailChimp at its own game, but actually stick it in every piece of social media. Stick it on every page of Facebook that you're using. Stick it in all kinds of different places. It doesn't care where it is. What it does is get the signature of the browser that the person is connecting on and the IP address, and it just keeps tracking quietly where all the different touches that person's had with anything to do with your business until you finally get to the point where you've converted them. That they've come to your website and they've downloaded the ebook or something where they've given up personal information. And from then on, you've got their track history of all the pages they visited your site on for who knows how long before they finally got to converting. All those dead ends they found on your site. So it's all the pages that didn't convert, didn't appeal to them. So it is an amazing set of insights that come in. It works well. Plugs into WordPress, plugs into Drupal. There's an extension to drop it into just about everything out there, as well as other projects. So it's one to keep track of. But they're doing some really interesting things, and one of the things that they're doing is they're marketing against their competitors. Lead Pages is one of their competitors. Lead Pages has been one of the specialists in the proprietary conversion market of bring people to a squeeze page like this and get their data and get them to convert. Well, Lead Pages, from their A/B testing, figured out some interesting things, like if you really want someone to click on something, put an attractive female in the picture looking in the direction of what you want them to click on. Your brain will follow that mental impression and go, if she's looking at something interesting, I will look at it too. So have one go on a page, one call to action, put it together. Well, all aspects of all of our projects have an aspect of UI to them that needs something like this. There isn't a page that we're creating out there for users that doesn't have a goal. If you don't have a goal for why a page exists, you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out why your project exists, what problem you're trying to solve, and why some user came to the page. Every page needs to have a goal. If you know what that goal is, then you can track how successful you were at it. It might be that they read the documentation and therefore didn't submit a support ticket. So there's lots of great things to learn from these projects. And so it's one to keep track of. And of course we do need to get the money. Every project does need funds because after all you need to put on those parties for all of your contributors at fun places like last year we were in Cancun. Part of working well in open source is understanding the mechanics of people and why they feel inspired to contribute to the software. This isn't Field of Dreams. You don't build the baseball field and then suddenly expect all these programmers to show up. It just doesn't work that way. I can't tell you how many government websites I've seen where they went open source so that people will contribute to it and they get a single commit. What's the incentive? Why? What itch is somebody scratching? So for each project, figure out what your why is. Part of communicating to people and making a marketing connection is being able to tell your story. Part of getting past the mental filters that every one of us have is to not start with what you do, not start with how you do it, but start with why. You got to build the emotional bridge first. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this afternoon in the Arctic presentation. But it is important to know that until people connect with you on an emotional level of why you do what you do, and they can relate to that, their filters are up to listening to what your technology is or what your how is. And so if you want to be communicating stronger, you need to get in touch with that. I work in the world of open source, in the world of nonprofits. They're constantly putting up a call to action of give us some money. One of the things that we have found through A/B testing is a lot of people use the donate button. And a whole lot of people are very resistant to the donate button. The word doesn't trigger right in the brain. They would much rather give or help or invest in that nonprofit, then donate to it. It's the magic of a word. A/B test everything that you're doing out there, because it's amazing what you're going to find out from it.
Gentlemen, something new from Focus 3?
What? I believe this beverage has produced an emotional response. Really? What are you feeling? I am uncertain. Because I have had little experience with emotion, I am unable to articulate the sensation.
Emotion?
I'll explain later.
It looks like he hates them.
Yes, that is it. I hate this. Yeah, I think the chip is working. Oh, yes! I hate this! It is revolting!
More?
Please.
Storytelling, emotional connection. These are the things that get people involved in your project. These are the things that bring users to your product. These are the things that really build the bridge. People want to follow what you do and the things that you resonate with. And you have to appeal to emotion first. And that's done most frequently and most effectively with storytelling. Figure out how to tell the story of why your project exists. Describe your itch and how you went about scratching it. But describe it. People will galvanate to that more than they will about how many hundreds or thousands of things you can solve, how many people will be benefited. The statistics, our logical side will kind of appreciate the numbers, mostly for credibility. It's kind of a rubber stamp thing, but it's the emotional appeal. So figure out your story and tell it as a story. Figure out your why and convey it out. Create videos about the people who are contributing to your project. It's the best way to attract new contributors. Show how much fun they're having. Show them the problem they feel they are solving, the good they're doing in the world, the advancement they're making to solve a particular market need. And then figure out how to show, not tell. Show all these things as much as possible. Leaders are readers. So there are some books out there that I'm a fond, great fan of. One of them is this one, as I've already mentioned, Start With Why. The quick and dirty version, go on TED Talks and find the presentation by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, and you'll get Start With Why in 12 minutes, and it will change your world if you've not come across that or understood the concept. Another one I really like is Zag. And actually I've summarized the whole message on the board. When your competition is doing one thing, you do something else. Find something about your project to be different, and then celebrate it. Bring it out. Make it stand out. Intentionally be different on that one thing. We don't want to reinvent every wheel. So bring in libraries of people who've done it before. Bring in all of the solutions you can, but then put your little twist on it. Find that one thing that makes you different, your solution stand out, and use that. Figure out what that is, and that's what you market. That's what you celebrate. Let's share with the world. It is all about impact. It's all about being innovative. And if you can't keep moving fast enough, the market will leave you behind. It is extreme. We all know how fast this world changes, and we can't keep up with the technologies in our own backyard. How many times have you changed programming languages in the last 10 years? I certainly have way too many times. As a project, you need to keep up as well. Storytelling done visually. This is a retrospective. The episode was called The Inner Light, and where a probe, in essence, put a beam on Picard, knocked him out for an hour of television time, while he went and lived the culture and the life of a planet that died. And so the retrospective of that pulls every emotional cord that you can think of. So if you're not familiar with that episode and what this clip is made from, you may want to go back and watch it analytically, from a screenwriter's perspective, from how do you tell a story? Because it's got every element of an impactful story in it. And if you can figure out how to take somebody in your project on a journey and tell the stages of that journey of how they came to the project, how they got involved, how they started down the path of being a contributor in open source, and then got fulfilled by it. You will attract people like crazy. It is amazing how effective that is. Bring it on. I'm ready. Engage. I would appreciate, though, if you would take a few moments to go on Joined In and rate the talk. We appreciate the feedback, both the organizers of the project as well as myself, of how we could do this talk better. This is one of the few talks I've given multiple times, so I've been rehearsing it a number of times and refining it. I would love your feedback, so if you take a moment to go on Joined In, and this talk is $13,895, and just code in something, I would appreciate it. So bring it on. Let's talk about open source and leadership. What can we talk about? Oh, come on. I didn't hit it that perfectly. So who's involved with a different open source project? Who's in a leadership role? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. What are your challenges? You've got perfect projects. They deliver code on time. Every commit meets code style. The marketing is impeccable. The branding positioning is Where are the challenges?
The biggest one is time.
Your time or contributors' time?
The contributors.
Figuring out how to do massively parallel contribution is one of those interesting challenges. And it's a challenge for leadership. One of the things in scheduling contributions is that people will talk about how much time they need to get something in by a particular release date that everyone's targeting for. And they'll set that calendar reasonably tight based on what it would take them to do it. It's too tight. So whatever it would take for you as a leader to do it, double or triple it. Put that time horizon out there, put the request out there, so that you've got time to allow beginners to take an attempt at that project, attempt and fail twice before you have to finally pick it up and finish it out for them, because that's what we always do. But if you don't have that lead time built in there, people don't have a chance to contribute. They don't get that sense of success. And along the way, yourself or identify somebody else, match people up to do the mentoring. The mentoring is what gets the project done on time. The mentor sometimes does have to code, and where they otherwise wouldn't have stepped up to doing the particular task because the task wasn't very fun, very sexy. I mean, who wants to rewrite a router? Yuck. But if they're doing it as a teaching vehicle where the feedback is someone's undying appreciation for helping me learn how to do this kind of code, people get very motivated. And then they love to do it over and over again. So create the teaching environment. One of the things I've learned in teaching adults is you want to create a situation where people are ready to learn, they're engaged to learn, and there's an approach out there in adult learning called the 6-pack. And the first step is what's called the set. Set the scene, set the problem, set the issue to be solved. Put everyone into the mental mindset of, I've got this problem, how else can I solve it? And then now people are ready to hear and discuss what it is that are reasonable solutions for that. So just some ideas out there. Work on the mentoring, work on training sessions, all kinds of ways to get teams put together to help out. More? Yeah.
What communication channels have you found the most effective to manage such a big distributed project?
Joomla is now running on Glip. Glip is like Slack, except we were on Slack and we got tired of it and moved off of it. So Glip is just one of those, I believe sadly it's proprietary, but it's one of those great little platforms that lets you both have chats within rooms, chats between individuals, uploaded resources, connections to everything that's in we use G Drive to store absolutely everything relating to administration of the project, and we use GitHub for everything else. And so it integrates with GitHub so that we get all the notices, we get issue reports, all those kinds of things. Really does bring people together. It helps the teams stay fun too, because it's got like nice tools in it.
Maybe. Never know what's going to happen.
Cards. Business cards. Who wants to win? Are you the only one? It's yours. There you go. I'm presenting 2 more times in case you want to run into me. This afternoon is Present Like a Pro, where we're going into how to do some session presentations and use some of the tools that the pros use. I've done a number of things to improve my public speaking over the years, and one of those was a 3-day conference a year ago that was intensive immersion for 3 days. And in an hour, I'm going to try to share everything that I learned in 3 days. So this is kind of a fun one. And tomorrow is that open source hack trick that I mentioned, which brings together a lot of different fun
This
parts.
man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle, holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs. Well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like in the world.
Thank you to EDS for putting together that commercial, which I think fits our issues perfectly. So, thank you for joining me today.